Welcome, everyone, to the very first episode of the PokéTable Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Logan from Zippy's Card Corner.
Alex with Pokélegend TCG.
This is a trial run of, figuring out how we want to talk about, the hobby, the market, just being business owners in the TCG space, and, getting to share those insights that we have with each other, on weekly calls. So this is a first try.
Yeah. So Logan and I have been talking over Discord like for a couple months now, and sometimes we talk for hours, and one of us was like, dude, we should just do a podcast where we put our conversations online. And here we are, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. Turning our chats into content, I think is something that I think other people would be interested in, and so that's sort of what we're at. But yeah, I think let's dive into episode 1. I think to start, where do you think we should start?
Yeah, so I think first, we should talk about what we want to do with the podcast. What are some of our goals? I, for one, am really excited about bringing on new business owners to kind of give them a voice and get their take on, how they're running their business, what mistakes they've had, what's their success, what gets them excited about running their card business. Those are the things that I'm most excited about with this podcast. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, as business owners who are, not just enjoying the hobby, as fans and collectors, but also, there's a back end, side of things where we're organizing things, we're, counting inventory, we're, juggling which sets are going to perform the best. I think that content is not necessarily something that's, shared as often. And I think, being open and candid about that kind of stuff, I think is, valuable. So I'm excited about that and just getting to chat, because it's cool to have someone that's, this into the hobby and in the same sort of position as I am. So yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's important too to have like a support structure for people that run this, but it's stressful sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's not just, sun and roses. It can be stressful. Like there are definitely a lot of ups and downs. And I think it's gonna be awesome that we're gonna provide a platform for not only for people to speak, but also where we can hopefully give them some advice.
Yeah.
And hopefully, make them more successful.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Should we talk about who we are? Give a little intro. You want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Alex, and I've been in Pokemon off and on basically my whole life since I was, 5 years old. I recently started a Pokemon store just a little over a year ago. It's called Pokélegends TCG. Oh, thank you. Applause. And there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs, and I'm really excited to share not only my successes, but also like some things that I messed up on, especially early, where if I can put that out there to where, it'll steer someone from not doing those things, I think that'll be super useful.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm Logan. I run Zippy's Card Corner. I started, my online shop almost a year ago. A year ago, I think maybe next month. And so, I have also been a fan of Pokemon for a long time, off and on over the course of my life. Evolving Skies got me back into it a couple years ago. And, ever since then, I've been enjoying ripping and collecting, and got to a point in my life where, there was some things that I wanted to do, outside of, my regular day job, that I had the time to do and kind of wanted to dive into. And so that's sort of where, the online business started. I wanted to experiment with creating a brand on social media, getting to kind of be creative and growing an audience while also picking a niche that I actually truly enjoy. I know that sounds, cliche, but I think being able to talk and dived into every single day something that you don't enjoy is so hard. On top of, it already being super hard to start a business. So that's sort of where I started. And so, yeah, I'm excited to talk with Alex about, his struggles, but also his successes, my struggles, my successes. And I think, it'll be valuable to, just like Alex said, it's not just valuable to, I think, other small, business owners who are up and coming, or even those that are already seeing success, picking up, what others have done and kind of tweaking it to their own style, but also just, the average collector. I think it's really important to hear what not just, the Targets and Walmarts are doing, or the, the large online businesses are doing, or the local game shops, but the small, out of your closet, kind of shops. So I'm really excited to share that, and just kind of grow the community and get to chat about that kind of stuff. So that's sort of
Yeah.
who I am, and sort of, where I'm coming from.
Yeah, well said. And I don't think we're alone in this. There are a lot of people that work, a giant chunk of their lives and doing something that they're not necessarily passionate about, but they have to do what they have to do to pay the bills and be financially secure. And sometimes you can't do that and also do what you're passionate about. So now that I'm in a position where I have a good job. Part of the reason why I started my Pokemon store is because was so I could finally do something that I like doing. So yeah, no, I love that. Well said.
But yeah, now that we've talked about ourselves and kind of what we want this podcast to be, let's actually get into some content. Because man, we've had a busy last week. And one topic that I know Alex and I have talked a lot about, is the removal of the de minimis rule, I guess, and how that will affect small businesses. Alex, do you want to, kind of let people know what that even is and kind of what's going on?
Sure. Yeah. So historically, the de minimis rule or exemption is if you buy anything that's less than $800 in value, and as long as it's for one person per household per day, then you're exempt from tariffs for what you import. And that's always kind of been the exemption. However, about a week ago, Donald Trump is putting a stop to that rule. Um, so now, uh, no matter what you buy, like whatever value of product you buy, it doesn't matter if it's less than $800 or not, you have to pay the tariff. Now, why that affects me and Logan and other Pokemon card businesses is because we import international Pokemon cards, mainly from Japan. So before, little Pokemon stores or smaller Pokemon stores had a bit of an advantage because we could take advantage of the de minimis rule, where we wouldn't have to import so much at one time. We could import $500-$600 worth of cards per day.
And because we're not, we're small, so we're not selling a ton. We're not selling hundreds of boxes. We're selling, in the tens. And being able to buy smaller quantities was not just an advantage because of the de minimis rule, but it made sense for our businesses.
Right, exactly. And it helped sort of even the playing field, right? Because there are bigger stores that are able to buy so much at one time that the price per box, the price per product could be a lot smaller than a smaller Pokemon store because we
Yeah.
can't buy as much at one time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. And so, you had this rule in place for so long, maybe, pretty much the entire existence of my store and then Alex's store. And so that's kind of all we've known. And so now the de minimis rule is axed, it's gone. As of right now, August 29th, I think, or 25th, or one of those, later in the month. And so after that date, as of right now, it's everyone's paying the 15% tariff, from Japan on Japanese, on simplified Chinese, on I think any international card that isn't Korean is produced in Japan. And so, Korean cards are a whole other story in terms of their tariffs and whatnot. But with Japanese, produced cards, those tariffs are going to affect every single shipment. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I think, you know, whether or not we actually see it go into effect is a whole other story. We've seen a bunch of um, changes, I guess you could say, in sort of, what the tariffs are going to be, and the de minimis and all kinds of things surrounding, global economics, from the US over the past couple of months. And so we'll see if it goes into effect. But as of right now, that's the plan.
Yeah, yeah, and that means Japanese Pokemon cards and most international cards, not including Korean, will be artificially 15% higher. You know, not having to do with supply or demand. It's just going to be 15% higher no matter what. And there's only so much that there's only so much of a price hike that will be uh,
Acceptable from the
yeah,
consumer.
acceptable by customers, right? Because the English market is what really drives the international market, in my opinion. So if like we're going through right now, English cards are hard to come by at MSRP. So people tend to turn towards international market to buy cards for a decent price. But now that Japanese cards are going to be artificially higher, people might be steered to just pay extra for the English cards. Um, and that matters because in order for new stores to start, they almost 100% have to start with international Pokemon cards. It's notoriously hard to get a distributor with English. And even if you do, especially right now, it doesn't mean you're going to have enough of a supply chain to meet demand. There are a lot of smaller Pokemon stores that didn't get anything for White Flare and Black Bolt.
Any
The
English
English White
product.
Flare. Yeah, English White Flare and Black Bolt. So it's gonna be interesting if this really goes into effect. Now, this also means that it doesn't make sense for customers to buy it straight from Japan themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's no barrier to entry to buy Japanese Pokemon cards. We're pretty much all on an equal playing field. So the 15% tariff on no matter what value of product you buy, that's going to apply even if you buy one or two boxes.
Yep.
So that means it's not gonna make sense, especially when you count shipping.
We're
Customers
talking,
buy
specifically, places like eBay,
right,
that will sell you, Japanese booster boxes directly from Japan.
right,
Those prices are going to go up because of this. Because you're only buying one or two, you're still paying that tariff.
right, exactly. So I there is a silver lining where I think that if you still want to buy Japanese cards, it makes more sense now to buy it from a store than it does from Japan. Because we can still buy it in bulk. We can buy it 10, 15 boxes at a time, which lowers the cost per box. And you're still going to get a better, and the shipping is spread out over 10, 15 boxes, not one or two.
Yeah.
Right. So it's still going to make more sense to buy from an official store than, importing it from Japan. So I guess that's one silver lining that we have here.
Yeah, it's just going to be a bigger risk, I think, for completely new stores. I think,
Yeah.
like Alex was saying, I think most stores, I started with Japanese, heck, most of my product is still Japanese. Um, because it's more straightforward, in terms of, getting product versus English, like Alex said, I think you need a distributor in order to get, wholesale prices. Versus, in Japanese product, international product, there are means that you can go through as a business owner to find, good deals. It takes some work, but you can. Now, it's you gotta eat that tariff, and that's going to increase risk because I think one of the biggest mistakes I made when I first started was like, oh, I'm super excited to start this Pokemon business. It won't be too hard to sell. That was completely wrong. And I remember I bought, well, way too much product because I was like, I can sell this. And I couldn't. And that's not because, I didn't try or because I wasn't doing enough. It was tough. It's tough to do, to run a Pokemon shop, especially starting off because you don't have
Yeah,
any credibility. You don't have any trust. Um,
yeah,
and so, on top of, the extra work that you're going to need to do, just as a business, start that off. You're now introducing an extra 15%, increase in risk every single time you order. And, I think margins are already small in this business.
already small.
They're
Yeah,
already so small in this business. And so, adding an extra 15% just to, get that 10-20% that you're looking for, um, it's gonna be tough. Yeah, new small businesses are probably gonna get hurt the hardest. Um, but that's where we're at.
yeah, yeah. Guys, it's hard enough to sell Japanese Pokemon
Yeah.
cards on a normal. And so yeah, putting a 15% price hike is that's gonna hurt. Um, but we'll see what happens. Hopefully, um, it gets reversed, and hopefully it doesn't go into effect at all. But right now, that's what it is. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah. How are you preparing for it at all? Like what's your strategy heading into, these, this new time? And assuming everything sticks and everything is gonna, stays the course, with what the current plan is, what are you doing as a business to kind of prepare for that?
Yeah, good question. So, and I don't know if I'm necessarily doing anything too different. I've always sort of had this strategy where I don't overly invest into anything. Like I don't overly, uh, you know, put too much capital in any one thing.
Sure.
So I'm definitely going to continue applying that, especially now. I'm gonna buy uh, as much as I can of Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia each demand, but I'm not going to have an excess on hand. So I guess that's my strategy. If I sell out, then I'll buy another 10, 15 boxes. But um, I'm not going to anticipate demand on international Pokemon cards. I guess that's the best way I can put it. I'm not going to try and anticipate demand.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm gonna,
yeah, no,
yeah,
I agree. And
even if that means I'm a week or two behind the eight ball.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, I mean, I think kind of what you said earlier, like, as tariffs increase, Japanese prices are going to increase. And when prices increase, it just means economically that, there will be less demand, because it's harder to get and people aren't going to be willing to pay those prices. Um,
yeah,
and so, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, personally, in our business, I'm not going to be focused as much as that on that 800 target. I think, there were times before where, you have a really hot set and you're not going to be able to buy as many boxes because that, obviously, the higher cost per box, the less you'll be able to, get before you hit that 800 mark. And as a small business, it's like you want to save money, and that 800 de minimis rule was a good kind of benchmark in terms of every single purchase and order you make from Japan. Versus now, it's like as I see my business growing, and more demand for the newest and hottest sets, you know, luckily, as a business that's been alive for almost a year, I have the benefit of having grown an audience and a customer base, and I know that as I continue to grow, more customers will want to buy from me, and so I won't restrict myself to that 800 limit as much and as often when new sets come out. And so that's something that and kind of like Alex was saying, the more you buy, the better the prices in terms of shippings, applied across your entire order. And instead of some really hot sets, like Black Bolt White Flare, where you're, just, getting maybe 8 boxes, per, order under 800. Um, you might say, well, why not, just order, 20 boxes at a time? Because you'll sell it. You know that people will want it early on. Why not buy those 20 boxes? Because you're going to be paying the tariff anyway, and you're passing that on, to the customer anyway. So that's something I think that will be interesting. And in our next, Japanese release, which I think is Inferno X, that's coming out in September.
Oh yeah,
So
that's gonna be huge.
that will be a really interesting launch, in terms of where prices start, um, you know, how much product is going to be available in the beginning, at launch. Uh, yeah, weird times, weird times.
Yeah. And you know, another thing with prices being 15% higher, it puts more risk on Pokemon stores. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 15% more risk no matter what. Um, so yeah, I mean that's the last thing I had to say about the
Yep.
de minimis rule. It's bad all around, guys. It's bad for everyone. It's bad for the stores and it's bad for you guys.
Yeah, it's weird. So,
Yeah.
you know, like I said earlier, there's a lot of changes that could happen, but we'll see. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's sort of where we're at right now. Maybe next week we'll have another update where we can dive
Yeah.
into it again. But that's sort of the general overview of where we're at right now.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. And I know you mentioned Inferno X,
Hmm.
the next set that's going to be released in
Yeah.
Japan. But I think that was a good segue to get into the Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia
Yes,
sets.
sir.
So the Japanese set is released, actually just released.
Yep.
So let me know what your thoughts are. What do you think of Mega Brave and Mega
Putting me on the
Symphonia
spot.
set? And what is your favorite card? And it
Um,
better be the Lucario.
yeah,
Better be.
right. Let's see. I mean, I think these dual sets that kind of intro us into the Mega block, for the
Yeah.
new Mega Evolutions, the Legend ZA video game. I think this set's super, super hyped. But I think it's hyped for good reason. I think this is a super strong set. I'm really interested to see, what the hype is like, for the English product that is releasing next month in September. But for this launch, I think we're seeing just excitement around this new block. I mean, there are so many people that have come into the hobby over the Scarlet and Violet era, um, and are just now experiencing their first new transition into a new block. And so I think, there's a lot of excitement. I think there's a lot of new, card, how do I say this? There's just new things, right? Like the super rare Pokemon cards for Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia just look nicer, right? The art's a little bit different. They've added a foil pattern, like a foil layer, like a glitter layer, that previously just the SARs had. And so when you pull a super rare, it's gonna feel like a hit,
Yeah.
more so than it did before. I think my favorite card. So there's a new rarity, a Mega Ultra Rare that kind of replaces the Gold Ultra Rares from Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, it's cliche, but I'm really excited about the gold Mega Ultra Rare Lucario. I think that card looks sick. I think, you know, uh, I just I'm already seeing people more excited about the gold cards, and with them always just being a lot harder to pull than SARs. Like
Yeah.
that's just a fact. The hit rates are smaller. Um, and with gold cards, this gold card actually being sought after, I think that's gonna be a chase for sure. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to pull it. Hopefully I can. I don't have the best luck, but that's sort of what I'm going for. But I think those are my general thoughts about it right now. There's a lot more that I could say, but what I want to get your take. What do you think?
Yeah, so first off, I agree with the gold cards. They have the potential to be a lot more valuable and a lot more sought after because they're just
Yeah.
they're a lot more rare than SIRs. So yeah, no, that's going to be interesting. So one thing I'm really excited about with this is because Pokemon has only done a few other mega sets. Like they
Yep.
haven't done that many. It's still relatively new. I think it first came out in 2015, 2016, around that time
Sure. Yeah.
is when the first mega TCG sets
It
have
was
came
X and
out.
Y.
What's that?
It was X and Y, like
X and
the
Y.
the generation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And there have been a lot of people that have came in, back into the hobby, from 151, Evolving Skies. So they haven't been able to experience the mega evolutions.
Yep.
And we're getting an entire block from what it looks like, an entire block dedicated to mega evolutions. And another thing that I don't think is talked about enough, Pokemon did the mega evolutions really well. Like I think that there's a lot of controversy in the community about some recent gens that Pokemon has done.
Okay.
But the Mega Evolutions, I think Pokemon has done extremely well.
Sure.
Like the Mega Charizard, the Mega Blastoise,
Yeah.
all these cards, like they were done really well. So I think this freight train that we're seeing right now with the Pokemon TCG, I don't see it stopping. I mean, I think that with the mega sets that look like they are coming down the pipe, the one that's going to be headlined by Greninja,
Yep.
Rayquaza, the Inferno X set, I think is going to be absolutely crazy, headlined by Charizard.
Yep.
Um, no, I think this is going to be fun, and I think if anything, the Pokemon TCG, I think it's just going to get more nuts, in my opinion.
I agree that it's going to get more nuts. I think, we're in the summer period, and if you're not aware, Pokemon goes through cycles in terms of the market value of cards, of sealed product, of everything, just hype in general. And we're in the summer months, and typically Pokemon product usually kind of cools down. It's summer, people aren't, necessarily, ripping cards. They're, going and hanging out with friends. They're, playing outside. They're just getting, outside of their homes. Um, and typically in the fall, the winter, and the spring, uh, Pokemon, starts to go back up again. And this summer, I think there were a lot of people that thought that this would be the time when things would chill out. The hype would die down. Um, and maybe we've seen a little bit of that, but we're still seeing releases that are impossible to come by. I don't remember the last time, or I've had friends that have waited in line in Target and are not able to get product. Even
Yeah,
after waiting it out for hours. It's just it's a wild time still, and we're now heading into a completely new block with new mechanics, new artwork, new Pokemon, Mega Evolutions. And we're headed into the fall. As temperatures start to cool down, people start to become homebodies again. Uh, you know, we're kind of heading into a perfect storm, and
yeah,
I'm thinking that we're still gonna be in this kind of this this environment where the hype is still so high and so hot, and it really is gonna be up to the Pokemon company, to change that. Um,
yeah.
I don't know. I think we're still in it in terms of uh, just a really hot market.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see there haven't been any signs of it slowing down, basically. Like I haven't seen much of a dip at all. Like
Yeah.
I'll go to my local Walmart, my local Meijer, for whatever, right? Groceries or whatever, and there won't be a single anything
Yeah, it's
for
cleaned
Pokemon.
out.
Like
You,
nothing. There'll be a section of Pokemon. There'll be like a section of Yu-Gi-Oh that's like full. They'll have a section of like Magic the Gathering, which lately has been also
yeah,
nuts.
yeah.
And the Pokemon section's always just empty. There's like nothing.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
not
it's
a single flavor.
wild because a year ago, When I remember, yeah, I used to live literally right across the street from a Target, and I'd go and get my groceries. I'd go in, and grab a snack or something. And there was a Pokemon section, and all the time it was filled, and I could just, purchase what I wanted. Uh,
Yeah.
you can't just go in to a Target nowadays and expect, that there's going to be product after work. You know,
Yeah.
it just isn't a thing.
Not even look. Just
Yeah, yeah. Like, you
yeah.
know, my girlfriend will say, "Oh, do you want to go, check out the Pokemon section?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's not worth it," because I know, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like I'll look, over, the aisles and just see like, oh, nope, it's cleared. It's clean. You're not
Yeah.
no point in even going over there.
No point.
Um, yeah. I kind of pivoting back to the Mega Evolution block. I think you mentioned how the Mega Evolution Pokemon have been a thing for we're going on 10 years now. Um, I think it'll be really interesting because there are perspectives in the hobby, collectors that think that modern cards are not nearly as they're not going to be nearly as sought after 10, 15 years from now as vintage. um, and I think it's an interesting take. I'm not sure I agree with it though. I think you have modern Pokemon cards that have introduced full art, illustrations on their cards. You have alternate arts in, the Sword and Shield era. You have, special illustration rares in the Scarlet and Violet, and we're continuing that in the Mega Block. And I think it'd be suicide for Pokemon to, not to stop that. And I think just the special illustration rares for these mega Pokemon are really going to be. I think we're going to see some insane artwork on some already insane Pokemon. Like, I'm not sure if you guys saw, but Mega Absol EX SAR from Mega Brave or Mega
Oh
Symphonia,
yeah.
one of the two. Like it looks like a straight out of Batman, and that's crazy. It's so cool, and you have people that really love a certain art style. And having it take up the full card, I think that's special. And I think comparing that to previous megas, in terms of what people like more, it's subjective. But I think that in terms of looking at it as a collectible piece, I think the modern cards have just as much, if not more, uh, reason to go up in value, and to be pieces that people care about, not just now but in 10, 15 years. And so I think this new set's going to be I think this new block is going to be crazy. I'm super excited for it. I think Mega Brave, Mega Symphonia, I've already opened up a good amount. I've sold a good amount. There is hype for this set. And it's fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, for sure. And you hit on it a little bit, but so the special illustration rares, the modern special illustration rares are relatively new.
Yeah.
Before it was alternate art rare and so on. The SIRs, in my opinion, are one of the best things that Pokemon's done
Yep.
with the trading card game in modern history. Because they're so beloved, and there's very little criticism
Yeah.
of the modern SIRs. And I did a whole video over this, but with SIRs being so new and so popular, that a lot of these coming out with Scarlet and Violet, and now the Mega Block. These could become vintage in years to come. So, yeah, no, I am excited. I'm excited for the Mega Block. I'm excited for Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia. And I
Yeah.
can't wait for the Inferno X set though. That's the one that I'm geeking out about.
Do you think that so? I'm curious your take with the Inferno X and sort of this next set. So, like Alex was saying, if you don't know, the Mega Block is this completely new TCG block. We've gone from Scarlet and Violet to now Megas, and it's because to tie in with the next, I guess, mainline game, Pokemon Legends ZA that comes out in October, and so I don't think that this will be a block for years. I think it will I think we're looking at probably a year's worth of sets. But the second set in Japan is going to be Inferno X, and it's going to be focused, speculation is going to be focused on Mega Charizard.
Yeah.
I'm curious, I want to hear your take. In the Scarlet and Violet block, we had Obsidian Flames, and that set has not been the most popular. You have people who say, oh, I have Charizard fatigue because Charizard probably top three, most iconic Pokemon in all of the franchise. I wanna hear your take if you think that this Inferno X and the English equivalent we just found out it's going to be called Phantasmal Flames. If Phantasmal Flames will I guess how it will compare to Obsidian Flames from the Scarlet and Violet era.
Yeah, no, excellent question. And you hit a little bit on Charizard fatigue. So there was Brilliant Stars, 151, and Obsidian Flames. Those three sets came out within like a couple of years of each other, and they're all headlined by Charizard.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little bit of Charizard fatigue. And then you combine that with the fact that Obsidian Flames was printed to the moon. You couldn't, stores could not get rid of
Yeah.
Obsidian Flames. I mean, it was selling for sub $100, if you can believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I actually like that Charizard.
Oh, I do too.
An Obsidian Flame.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
I love it, but I think it combined with the fact that there were so many sets headlined by Charizard within a short amount of time, and then also Obsidian Flames being printed to the absolute stars.
Yep.
I think that's what contributed to the fact that the SIR Charizard and Obsidian Flames was just never caught fire.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I think that this one will be different though, Inferno X, Phantasmal Flames, is because the last time there was a Mega Charizard though was back 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there hasn't been a Mega Charizard because it was only done once.
Yeah.
Right? There was I think there were two versions of Mega Charizard for X and Y.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There was the gold version,
Yep.
and then and that's it. There hasn't been another one. So I think this one will be. I think this set will be as hyped, as hyped as Prismatic Evolutions, or even
Really? Wow.
So yeah, I think this set is going to be. I am super excited for this set. I will put it like that. Now I talked a little bit about being careful about anticipating demand with the new environment of international Pokemon cards. Inferno X might be an exception. I think it's gonna be so crazy that if we don't buy it early enough before release, I think the price could skyrocket on that set, at least for the first few weeks of release.
Yeah. No,
So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I'll say that. Yeah.
It's what's also, I think it's especially for the English side. So Phantasmal Flames, we just talked about Charizard. Phantasmal Flames is also rumored to get a Mega Gengar, because in Japan, Japan is releasing a Mega Gengar and a Mega Diancie. They're releasing structure decks for them basically, and they're likely going to include those in the English Phantasmal Flames. And so Phantasmal Flames will be headlined by Mega Charizard and Mega Gengar. And, there's a lot of fans of Charizard. There's also a lot of fans of Gengar. I think the English set could be even more hyped than Mega Evolutions, the first set, the base set of this new block. Yeah, it's gonna be wild. I think, to say the least. So yeah, I can get behind that take for sure.
And the Mega Evolutions for Gengar and Charizard were done perfectly well. I
Yeah.
mean, some of the best, you know, mega evolutions that you could ask for, especially Charizard.
Yeah.
I mean, the blue flame coming out, that was sick. Did you watch the release of when um uh it was Charizard against Mewtwo, and then he evolved into Mega Charizard and battled the Mewtwo. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that
Yeah.
video was sick.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. They're fan favorites for a reason. And I think that all these people get into the hobby. I think, the hype around Charizard without sort of the fanfare, just understanding that the Charizard base set Charizard from, back in the day, is the most iconic Pokemon card. I think, uh, I think these sets will have a lot of leverage. And I think that as business owners, I think it sounds like we're both prepared to invest, in this set, and the next couple of sets. So that's sort of, I think, my take. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with Mega Brave, Mega Symphonia, and anything like that right now?
No, I think, like I said, I'm just super excited to what's to come, and then not to mention, we didn't even mention this, the 30-year
Yeah.
the anniversary. What's Pokemon gonna do for that? I mean, that's probably gonna be super hyped. So again, like, can't stress enough, this freight train. I don't think I don't see any signs of it stopping. So I guess,
No, I
but
agree. Yeah, no, it's gonna be nuts. And as we're heading into fall and the holiday season, there's just a lot going for it. So, sorry to say, I don't think I don't think consumers will be able to get, cards as easily, at least until Pokemon, can show the proof that they are printing more.
yeah,
So we'll see.
yeah, yeah. I mean, historically, if you look back to the last time this happened, back in 2021, 2022, with Shining Fates and Battle Styles, those sets, Pokemon did eventually start printing stuff into the ground, like to the point where, like, Battle Styles just sold out in Pokemon Center, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago,
Yeah.
and it came out in 2022.
Yeah.
So that's how much it if you can imagine that, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
right now sets are sold out within like an hour, but Battle Styles, think about that for a second. That was released 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and it just sold out a few months ago.
Yeah.
So it could happen again, but right now we're not seeing any signs.
No, and I think the hype is. I think in the early 2020s, I think you had COVID that had a
Yeah,
big, I think, um,
yeah, you had
factor.
supply chain issues, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. There were some things that happened that just meant that it was gonna be tough. To
yeah,
like the hype was gonna be there. Um, we're at a point where there's not really anything. I think we haven't even had a game release. Since the hype started, and I think that right now it really is just people are realizing that scalpers are realizing that people will want this stuff. They want it because they want it. Um,
right,
not because they're home alone and in lockdown and they just want to do something at home or you know like there's not just like a huge amount of cards that are being printed less than before. No, there's still a lot of cards being printed.
yeah.
um it's just there is a huge just natural desire for it right now. And
Yeah,
I think
the collector market right now is as strong as it's ever been. Like, I don't
yeah.
remember it ever being this strong.
And
Basically, I mean, and and like you mentioned, like during COVID, at least there were supply chain issues, right? Everybody was at home, looking for something to do with their time. That all contributed into the craze last time in the early
yeah.
2020s. But now it's just it's pure supply and demand.
And I,
There are no supply chain issues or
yeah,
anything. You know.
no, and I think right now, there's always been investors. There's always been
Yeah.
Pokemon investors who have, their strategy with their money is buying Pokemon, holding it, whether it's sealed, whether it's graded cards, whether it's just, collections. There's always been some intention, from some part of the community to invest and keep these in, for the long term and seeing that growth. I think right now we are seeing more investors than ever before. And I think you have a lot of people who are buying, just they want to buy a ton of product and keep it sealed. And I think that increase in audience, increase in population of the community, is also playing a role. Just in terms of what you can buy. You have people that are just, getting things from the shelves that they can and just putting it in their closet. And crossing their fingers that in 10 years it will go up in value. It will, but it's just an interesting aspect of why, just another reason why I think that right now it's just a really weird time with the hype that we're seeing.
Yeah. 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 No. Well said. Um. So I think that'll put us in our next segment where we wanted to talk about some goals for our shops
Sure.
for our short term goals. We can talk business goals for August, what we're working on behind the scenes, and so on. So right now, for me, um, my website definitely needs um,
Okay.
it needs some love.
Yeah.
So for me, that's gonna be the immediate task. I have like stuff centered around Glory of Team Rocket,
hmm
Black Bolt and White Flare. I don't have anything centered around Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia.
Okay.
So I definitely need to put some stuff there. I'm still using the sort of default um, inventory, like where
Okay.
you know where you go to add stuff to cart. I'm using the sort of the default one that comes with Wix. I'd like to make that more custom
Sure.
for my website to make it just a better user experience.
Mhm.
Um, so those are a couple things I'm working on sort of behind the scenes
Cool.
my store. What about you?
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, I think right now, I mean, you know, for those that, this is the first one. This is the first podcast. So, we're introducing ourselves. But, I've started this Pokemon business about, almost a year ago. Like I said, it wasn't really until, Alex, challenged me and other small businesses to produce more on social media to build that brand. He issued a challenge, you know, uh, 2.5 months ago now. Basically, post a reel with your face talking about Pokemon, once a day for 30 days and just see what that does for your business. Because there's a lot of online shops that don't do that. And kind of what I was talking about earlier, it's really tough starting out because there's no trust. There's no audience that you have. There's no customer base. And so you're selling to the void. And I was like, my shop had up to that point been a failure, and so uh, I took that challenge as sort of like, what the heck, I might as well give this a shot. Really grind and post once a day, um, and I did that, and I think that has been made a world of a difference in terms of my audience and in terms of who my customer base is, and I think I've posted once a day for the past, you know, 60 to 80 days at this point, which is crazy. And my audience is my following on Instagram has grown from, I think I started with like 500 followers and now I'm over 7,000. And so that has been sort of the fuel to the success lately, my business. And so as of right now, I think that's still sort of my strategy is continue to post, frequently, build that audience, you know, have a place for others to not just, not just have it be a way to kind of get customers, but also see it as a content creation kind of thing, and share, my love and my passion for Pokemon. So that's sort of, I think, where my business has been and where I still see it going. There's a lot of optimizations that I want to do for it, so that it doesn't take up as much time as it has been. Um, Another thing that, in terms of what my business has is, I'm really trying to focus on having one or two drops a month that are English product, and kind of diversify, what products and items my customer base can get. So we have a drop next week that's coming up on Zippy's Card Corner, so I'm really excited about that. But that's
What?
sort of what, yeah, that's sort of where my business is right now, and sort of what I'm thinking about, at least in the short term.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you kind of hit on something um, really good, and I want to drive that point here. Is it's hard to build customer trust. Like there are
Yeah,
just a lot of untrustworthy people out there. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of consistency to build that trust. And one of the ways to do that is to post content with your face. That's super important. Those two things combined are very important because if you put your face in front of your business, right, it's going to make um, the idea of scamming someone um, a lot more impactful. I mean, your face is attached to it now. You know,
yeah.
your name, right? Your name is attached to it, and I think people recognize that, and I think that's very important to build trust in this industry. And Logan, you have done an excellent job with that.
I
I take
appreciate it.
zero.
I put a lot of credit to you too.
I take zero credit because and this is interesting. And me and Logan have talked a lot about this on our Discord calls. I've gotten a lot of inspiration from Logan from a lot of his videos because I my content was way too raw for way too long. Like I didn't do editing really. I didn't do um, I didn't even use a proper mic. I just used my phone. Like there's background noise. There's all kinds of stuff going on with my videos. But with Logan, he did it professionally. Like he uses a script. He uses proper lighting. So I've gotten a lot of inspiration from Logan. So I am very, very proud of Logan. Super impressed, and cannot say more enough good things about what Logan's done
I
in the
appreciate it. I
last
mean,
two and a half 3 months.
it's interesting though, right? Because like,
Yeah,
we've talked a lot, and
yeah,
it's really interesting how, we're in different parts of our business journey and all that kind of stuff, and there's not just one way, but that is sort of the way that I think, most people can do it,
yeah,
just by being consistent. It's crazy what consistency can do.
yeah,
And it, what I'll say, we could have a whole podcast episode about this, but
yeah,
what I'll say is like, just start. You know,
yeah,
make have your content be not great. That's okay. Because as you post consistently, you'll start to figure out optimizations, how you can be more efficient. And so maybe after posting your 10th poor video in a row, you start to recognize a pattern of like, oh, okay, well, I've gotten much quicker at creating poor videos. Maybe I can, really focus on one thing to improve. And then the next 10 videos, you've honed in on that specific thing. And now you're at 20 videos. You've built an audience that Instagram is kind of understanding, okay, we'll put them out more towards towards this audience. And you've also improved something. It,
right.
it doesn't have to be perfect from the get-go. And so that's the biggest, piece of advice for real small business, starting out, that I would give. But yeah, and I think it just goes to show, it's like, Alex started off this segment with saying, what are you doing with your business right now? What's sort of the plan? My plan is to continue doing what I've found to, be the key to my success. It's not the key to everyone's success. But that's sort of what I'm going to continue to do. And Alex is going to continue to do the things that, you know, he does, to make his business successful. He sells a lot more than me. He has his secret sauce. And so, it's not one size fits all, but consistency is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, consistency is absolutely king, and that's the advice I would give to anyone as well. Turn the camera on, start talking, post consistently.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one thing I would tell anyone starting their own Pokemon store. And I am excited as we bring on other business
Yeah.
owners to talk to them about, the same kind of stuff. Like, look, uh, I checked out your social media, dude. You're not posting enough.
Yeah.
You're not posting nearly enough. And the stuff you post, like, I don't know who you are. Sure, I see your store, but who's behind the store? So a lot of those things I'm very excited to talk about with newer store owners.
Yeah,
So
no, I agree. And kind of to wrap things up, I think one thing that I think Alex and I have talked about that we really want from this podcast is to kind of hear the voice of the community, and hear the voice of our viewers. And um, you know, if you made it this far, I'd really encourage you to, post a comment, and ask a question that you think is real, that we should answer, or let us know your take on sort of anything that we've talked about. Because we'll take those comments and we'll read them, and next video we'll have a whole segment where we kind of dive into some of the topics and some of the questions that you guys have asked us and talked about. So that's something that we want to start doing, throughout the rest of the podcast, throughout the rest of these series of this episodes. So please comment, if you made it this far, I'd be super appreciated.
we will reply to every single comment.
Yeah.
And that was a great segue. Yeah. So if you guys have questions that you want us to ask, and if you have stuff that, look, these are the things you look for before you buy from a new Pokemon store. Those are things that are super valuable to us, and we'll make sure to put that in front of people we bring on the podcast.
Yep. And hopefully, we can have a guest in the first, couple weeks. As we're kind of figuring this whole thing out. This is a real rough cut, but kind of what we alluded to earlier. It's okay that it's not great. It's okay that it's not perfect. We're starting, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I know Alex is excited about it. So, yeah, no, that's about it.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's that's a great way to end. And guys, this was our first podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Definitely would appreciate any feedback you'd be willing to give us in the comments. And yeah, Logan, I think we can wrap up.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, make sure to hit that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Leave a comment.
Great.
Thanks for hanging out with us. This is the PokéTable Podcast, episode 1.
Yeah,
I guess we'll see y'all next week.
yeah. All right. Love you guys.
See ya.
Peace.